Kids, it's time for the weekly Big Idea. I'm John. It's good to see you again. It's hard to believe it's December, right? That's crazy. So, as always, going to show you the drawings for this week. We've only got two more of these. We've got today and next week. And this is our last lesson with a drawing because next week I'm going to teach you some sign language. I know you're really sad because I know you love my drawings, okay? So today's lesson is about Paul's shipwreck, and we can see this in Acts chapter 24 through 28. I'll go ahead and tell you what's really funny. This is supposed to be a boat, but because of the world we live in, it looks like a face mask. I'm sorry in advance. You're never going to be able to think about it differently, but just bear with me, okay? It's supposed to be a ship, but let me tell you what's going on with each of these drawings. So first off, you're going to draw like little C's, one regular, one backwards, and then connect them and just draw lines. So it's supposed to be a ship. It looks like a face mask, but just work with me. So here's what's going on. Paul was a prisoner now. The leaders in Jerusalem who wanted to stop him from telling about Jesus finally had gotten him arrested. But because Paul was a Roman citizen, that's where he lived in Rome, he was a citizen of that place, he received permission to sail to Rome to meet with the mighty Roman emperor. So what you're doing in a lot of these drawings is these first four, you're drawing the same thing over and over again, and you're just adding bits and pieces. So you're drawing the same thing over here, except you're going to draw a line like this and like an upside down T. And then you can picture it like the number 7 regular and then a backward 7 to show the sail, okay? Sails from the hull of the ship. And here's what's going on here. It says at the first stop of their journey, there was a centurion named Julius who was to take Paul to Rome and let Paul visit his friends. When the ship sailed again, the wind nearly blew the small ship off course. At the second stop, Paul and his friends and Julius got on a larger ship so they could sail for Italy. Have any of you ever been to Italy? Do you want to go? I think we should go. It'd be a lot of fun. Okay, so on to our next picture. So the same picture, except this time we're adding these lines around it to show the wind blowing it back and forth. And then we're adding these lines to these little shapes right here to show that they're in the water. And here's what was going on in this picture of our Bible story. The ship was loaded with a lot of cargo and over 270 passengers. As they traveled, the weather grew worse and worse. Then the winds became big gusts. Waves tossed the ship from side to side. I don't know if you've ever been on a boat or if you've ever been on like a speedboat or a Sea-Doo. I don't know. And you can feel the water, maybe not on a Sea-Doo, but you feel the water kind of tossing you back and forth. So the winds became these big gusts, and day after day, the storms raged, and the sailors threw everything overboard, everything, and they didn't need because they didn't want to drown, right? And so but the storm kept getting worse and worse, and they said, we're going to die. So they were really afraid of this big storm. And so then the last picture, so again, it's the same picture, the same line, same water, show these lines from the water, except this time you're adding people into the water. And here's why. Paul had good news. Don't be afraid. God has promised that we will be saved. So as the ship began to break apart, everyone jumped overboard and swam or floated to land. The ship was gone. So the ship was destroyed, but everyone was safe, just as God promised and Paul had told them. So that would be a really scary thing if you had to jump overboard, but God had promised Paul that they would be safe, and they were safe. So our next picture, you're going to draw an X with a bunch of little shapes like this, and then you're going to draw an S for the snake over here and add a little shape here with the eyeball and the tongue. Snakes are still scary. Just looking at this picture scares me. So here's what's going on in this picture. Paul and his shipmates landed on an island. The people on the island kindly built a fire, which is what this is supposed to be, a fire while Paul gathered a bunch of wood together. A very poisonous snake darted out of the pile of wood in Paul's hands and bit him. My worst fear. But the snake's poison didn't hurt Paul at all, and everyone was amazed. It was just another example that God was with them and guiding them. Okay. Our next picture over here, this is someone praying. So you're just going to draw their face like this, and then you just draw a line for the body, and then you just draw these oval shapes on top of each other, and it looks like someone's hands is praying. And so here's what's going on in this picture. While Paul was on the island, he met a man who was sick. Paul prayed for him, and God healed him. Soon, every other sick person on the island came to see Paul. Each one went away healed. So for 3 months, Paul helped the people on the island, and he taught them about Jesus as well. So even though they were on this random island and were shipwrecked, God used Paul to help the people there who were sick. It's pretty amazing. So now I'm going to go back over here. So this picture you're going to draw twice, or if you just want to draw this picture and then draw this other stuff on top of it, you can do that. It's whatever you want to do. Well, this picture you're going to draw a building. So what I did is I just drew this first shape, and then I added to it, and then I added to it, and I added the people, or added the parts to the building. And then you draw this stick figure person who's got a staff there with an arrow like a Roman soldier. And so here's what's going on in this picture. When spring came, it was time to sail for Rome. After several stops, Paul and his traveling companions arrived in Rome. Even though he was still a prisoner, Paul was not thrown into a dungeon or put into stocks. He was allowed to rent a house, and a soldier was left to guard him. Paul must have told that soldier about Jesus. So you know he was talking to this guy about Jesus. And then our last picture, it's the same picture, except you're going to add these 3 stick figures, and you're going to add like a little call-out box, and that says Jesus is God's son. And so here's why that picture is drawn that way. For the next 2 years, Paul lived in his house and gladly welcomed everyone who came to see him. He preached and taught about Jesus. Many people believed the good news about Jesus. Paul's enemies in Jerusalem thought that by arresting Paul, they were going to stop him from preaching about Jesus and telling others about Jesus. But it didn't stop him at all. Now in Rome, there were new opportunities and more ways to tell more people about Jesus. So think about this story. Just what were some things that happened to Paul? He went through a lot, didn't he? But what did Paul do in each of those situations? He trusted God. No matter how scary the shipwreck was or how bad the situation seemed to be, Paul trusted God, and he thought, no matter what happens, God's going to give me opportunities to tell people about Jesus. And he did. So no matter what happened to Paul, he kept on telling people, and we can do the same thing. No matter what situation we're in, we can tell people about the love of God, and we can show people God's love by loving him ourselves, no matter how down the situation may be. So I hope you guys learned something this week. Send me pictures of your pictures, and I hope to see you guys next week.